offender to determine whether or not he's going to get into trouble. My one question would likely be, who are you going to hang around with? Who are you going to be spending time with in the community? And so when you think about correctional programs for a low-risk offender, forcing them into environments where they're going to be in contact with one of the most robust predictors of criminal behavior, peers, is kind of a bad idea. And so there's probably a detrimental effect that happens through kind of that association as well. And so, yeah, it's consistently been shown as absolutely that they do worse when they've been subjected to treatments that are too intense for their needs versus comparison groups. And that would be a really important part, clearly, of integrating the ODRC system in, because our previous two studies, have shown very similar results to other jurisdictions in that way. So the ODRC system itself, we wrapped up the data analysis, had lots of late nights doing it, but it actually was a lot of fun to look at the data. And that is exciting given the ambition and scope of what it will do. And again, I think it does distinguish Ohio from other jurisdictions because there really aren't any that I'm aware of that have tried to integrate this on this scale. But there will be, or there is now, a series of 5 instruments that can be used in different stages of an offender's involvement in the correctional system. So there's a pretrial instrument, which predicts both failure to appear, but also arrest, simply from the time that they're assessed until they appear in court. So more of a short window of outcome or prediction. There's a community supervision tool. There will also be, or there is also, a screener, which I think Ed Latessa, who has a way with words, described it. I think he said misdemeanors are like ants in the state of Ohio. There are a lot of them, and so for jurisdictions that have a whole lot of people that they can't. The community supervision assessment probably is going to take somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour, and so for jurisdictions that process large numbers of offenders, they need a more practical way to essentially screen who needs a longer assessment and who can be moved more quickly into other areas. And so the screener will allow jurisdictions to do that. Prison intake, so looking at what things should happen for case planning right from the time that an offender enters prison through to reentry. And I think that our recommendation would be that offenders who eventually re-enter society, have been there for a while, would then be reassessed with the community supervision tool again. And so there'll be, there can be re-administration of community supervision as sort of necessary as they walk through. It gives us some of the advantages are that it gives us a cumulative risk assessment. So there are, for example, items that pull through from one assessment to another. And it allows us to build our knowledge about an offender as he sort of moves through the system, and it allows us to get information on that. But also, probably just as importantly, if not more, is that, as was mentioned earlier, it really does provide the opportunity for us to be able to give feedback on an ongoing basis based on your own data, where cutoff should be, how all the instruments doing in predicting, and so forth. And that really will be a unique part of this. So there will be different decision points, as I described previously, and normed and validated, and will continue to be validated on a very dynamic basis over time with an Ohio sample. Many of the benefits would include things like helping with decision making, so everything from bail decisions to level of supervision to whether or not somebody should be revoked. To also aid in the allocation of resources, so both in terms of financial allocation of resources, but also in terms of levels of supervision and case management as well. Probably one of the biggest benefits that I see, from having worked with various agencies in Ohio over the last 5 years or so, is that I hope that it facilitates communication and that it gives us all kind of a consistent language to be able to use in terms of case management and so forth. The reality is it's usually not one agency's responsibility for that offender alone. It really is a systemic issue, and then when you factor in many of the other external service providers and referral agencies, that becomes really important. And it's been pretty clear over time, to me anyway, that part of the problem is that there hasn't really been that consistent language, and things can be disjointed at times. And I think that the ODRC system will go a long way in facilitating some of that.
What kind of traction are you all getting with making that a reality?
Well, I'll actually let Ed talk a little bit about that. The instruments are done, we've piloted them, we're in the process of rollout for implementation. So Ed, maybe you want to talk a little about that.
We consider this to be, in many ways, our most important priority project in the situation of constraints and funding, and that's not me 100%. And Linda James and myself, Linda is the Deputy Director over Cold Service. We're working together with our department to identify funding streams to support this sustainment and grow it across the state of Ohio. We'll be working with the Supreme Court and with the Ohio Judicial Conference. We'll be working with the Chief Probation Officers Association. We're starting to get the word out on this. This will evolve and it will grow in time. It's a commitment the state of Ohio has made to see this thing through. And what we hope is that within the next year, by July 1st of next year, we will have rolled out all these components and they will be automated. And because it's not a proprietary tool, we want to encourage every agency, every jurisdiction in Ohio to adopt this, embrace it, and to do what Paul was just talking about, facilitating a shared vocabulary around how we do business. So especially as offenders for us come into the Department of Corrections, we've got a lot of work that's been done already. We're using the same assessment tools. We understand what it all means. And if they go out into the community and might go back on probation at some point, they themselves will be the beneficiary of tools that have already been completed. This will be posed in a database that will be accessible and connected to the courts and elsewhere. That's a big undertaking. Sure. But I see it as a multi-year commitment. But what is exciting is it will represent the growth of a dynamic database that is prospective, that will allow us to get a whole lot better and much more sophisticated than we are now in terms of decision making.
We originally wanted to wait until it was automated to roll it out, but some of the funding issues that have come up, we're kind of moving the automation back. But we're being pestered by local agencies to let us, they're like, let us use it anyway. Let us do the pen and paper version. So we're going to start training late in July, early in August for folks that they can start using the tool. So it's definitely people are eager for it.
Who will have access to the assessment? Will the offender themselves walk away with it on the police? Is it something that they'll take away with them?
There's such good work going on in so many areas. The offender, whether it's in the Department of Corrections or on probation or elsewhere, isn't a participant in that case planning process. It doesn't have that information and can help shape it as well. It won't work. It won't be something that's imposed on offenders. And so they'll have that information in hand, yes. And I think what Alicia just mentioned, which is so important, this idea that folks are reaching out even when this isn't automated. This is 45 minutes to an hour assessment is a major investment in time in a given offender. Most agencies would balk at that and push back, which is why we've been adamant about getting it automated before we roll it out. But the fact is we've got folks that want to run with it and begin to work with it. And I would see them as future ambassadors for advocating for the rollout of this tool. So yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. It really is.
Exciting also because other states have already started to inquire about it and want to see the inherent logic in it. And so there are a couple of other states that we're working with now who are likely to pick up the ODRC and do a similar type of thing systemically in their own jurisdiction. So it really is exciting, and it is a new Ohio really I think are the leaders in doing this. So it's going to be very exciting. Yeah.
Well, as far as offenders having access to the ORAP, I think that you need to consider long-term implications of people being aware of the connection